Éric, the election is on. We know it's going to be a close race, but what's the story that you see in the numbers?
Well, right now we are seeing that it is the close race that you mentioned in those national numbers. Now, as we saw in the last two election campaigns, a close race between the Liberals and the Conservatives can still produce a Liberal minority government, maybe even a majority government with the numbers we're looking at. But one of the things that I'm really going to be curious to see over the next little while is some of the numbers we've been seeing for the leaders of the parties. Mark Carney's own personal approval ratings, his favorability ratings, depending on how the pollsters ask it, are quite positive. There are more Canadians who either have a good opinion or a positive view of him than a negative one. And we've seen that Pierre Poilievre's numbers have gotten quite a bit worse over the last little while. Particularly his negatives have gone up, while Jagmeet Singh of the NDP is in a much worse position on the personal front than he was in 2021. And I think just on some of the polls we've seen, based on the leadership qualities and what Canadians are looking for, at this stage, very, very favorable to Mark Carney.
Okay, we're talking about individuals, but not individual polls. I know, Philippe, you both, as we've explained to people, we both collate polls, you assess them. Is there a trend that you see that Éric didn't mention?
Well, Éric mentioned the leaders, and I think it is an important indicator beyond what we see in the voting intentions. Just the polls that we had in the last few hours today show that the Liberals perhaps have not hit their ceilings. And the numbers are even more improved when you look at the favorability, as Éric has said, but also the preferred choice of Prime Minister. This is a question that Pierre Poilievre used to dominate Justin Trudeau until Justin Trudeau finally resigned. But when we look at the numbers now, who would be your choice for Prime Minister? Mr. Carney leads in every region of the country except Alberta and Saskatchewan. And even in those provinces, Monsieur Poilievre only leads by 4 or 5 points. And so it seems to be a little wave going on, a honeymoon for Monsieur Carney. And the question is whether it will last 5 weeks.
Éric, just thinking, as a voter, do polls matter? I mean, why do people need to check on them? Because they get dumped on so often.
Oh, yes, no, and we hear it all the time. But, I do think that polls do matter in the sense that they are important sources of information. We have to remember that polls they don't exist in a vacuum. They're a reflection of public opinion. They're actually a reflection of just what Canadians think. And I think that it's always important to know what Canadians think about any issue, be it Donald Trump, tariffs, or who they're going to vote in the next election. Now, do people need to follow the polls as closely as Philippe and I do? No, but they can just come to us and we'll tell them what the latest numbers are showing. But I do think there is a value there for voters to have a beat on actually what is happening in the course of the campaign.
So we are, as you know, we're here in St. John, New Brunswick tonight, in part because of its huge vulnerability to tariffs. So there's lots of Trump talk here. What is your sense, Philippe, of how dominant the question about which leader can best handle Trump will be?
Well, we have fresh numbers on this, and we see the question, what is the most important issue facing Canada right now? And again, from the Angus Street Institute, but we have seen similar numbers from other pollsters. Number one is still cost of living and inflation, but not far behind. We see in second place dealing with the American administration. And in the numbers, the regional numbers, we see that in Atlantic Canada, dealing with Trump is number two, a very high number two on the issues aside from cost of living. And so, again, I go back to the leaders. In Atlantic Canada, Mr. Carney has a 40-point lead as preferred Prime Minister. He has managed to make himself the better options in the eyes of many Canadians, especially in Atlantic Canada, as to deal with Trump and the American administration.
So, Éric, I mean, it's still so early. What are you watching for next?
Well, one of the things that I think is really going to be key in this election, and it doesn't get as much attention, when you have this epic fight between Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre, is the fate of the NDP. The NDP in our poll tracker has only 11% support. That is very, very low. It's looking like one of the worst performances the NDP would have if those numbers held through Election Day. And whether those numbers are going to hold is going to be something I'm going to be watching, because the Conservatives cannot win an election when the NDP is at 11%. So to look at whether Mark Carney is going to become the Prime Minister or Pierre Poilievre will, one of the numbers to watch will be the score for the NDP. And right now, it's a score that is very good for the Liberals and very bad for the Conservatives.
Very briefly, Philippe, do you want to take a shot at that?
Well, I
something
will
to look
just
for?
echo what Éric just said, that we had 4 new polls today, and all of them have the NDP in single digits nationally. This is a disaster waiting to happen if Jagmeet Singh and his team don't turn things around. Single digit in BC, single digits in Manitoba and Ontario. That's a lot of seats that are in danger for the NDP.
All right. Éric, Philippe, thanks for your insight. You know we'll be checking in again very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adrienne.